sure what that means. So welcome. It's wonderful to see you all here today. This has been a long time coming, and we've been talking about it for many years. So to have Judith and Jonathan and Joe and Alistair and Rix and everybody else that I know and don't know, Jenny, Michelle, Emma, Alan, and now I'm going to try and remember everybody's name. We'll leave it there. I'll know the rest of your names by the end of the day. So it's really wonderful to be welcoming you here today. And for those of you that know nothing about NLP, this is going to be a very unusual and interesting introduction. And what I would hope for that is that what you go away with is actually quite a strong, deepened understanding of how NLP is meant to practice in the body, rather than just as a kind of conceptual philosophy. Because ultimately, that's really what NLP is about. It's a body practice. It's particularly wonderful to be for this to have come to fruition with Judith and Jonathan PPD. Because for me, NLP can get very... Is that Jonathan subtly doing something? Are you subtly doing something, John? NLP can become something that stays as a concept in people's minds. So you can have people that are very well practiced, but actually they're not very embodied in the art. And I think as an art form, it's something that really needs to be run through the whole system. And for me, PPD has been the NLP institution that has most held that for me, and so I felt very aligned with it as an institution. What about you? So, and for those of you that we know and that are experienced, what we would be looking for is that this will just give you a different, shine a light from a different perspective that will really allow you to expand and land some of those practices that you've been working with for a long time. So he's just telling me I'm giving you guys a lot of attention, but there's something over there that we should be paying attention to, or we might need to pay attention to. It's Jonathan's moving. Yes, so we'd like to kind of honour that journey of exploration by allowing us to give any grounded explanations that are required. I think one of the things sometimes about neurolinguistic programming, I always find that interesting, it's about clarifying what works, really, what works in terms of communication. And I love that neurolinguistic programming is a label that people will go, what does that mean? So it's good practice for everybody to practice landing NLP in a very understandable, practical, pragmatic, grounded fashion. Okay? So you can call us on it, any of us. If any of you people that don't know anything about NLP, just call us on it and say, you guys are talking in an unknown language. But what I'm really hoping is that we're talking the language of Equus, and that in itself actually will be something that is familiar with all of you, because we're just going to be talking the language of the soma, of the body. And we all have one. As far as I can tell right now, we all have one. Why I work with horses is because, for me, they're the kings of the somatic man. They are, I think we might found the necessary anchor. So an anchor is that place of, well, for him an anchor would be a place of comfort, a place where it's safe to land and it's familiar. And I think we might have just found that. So the horses for me represent a level of somatic excellence and understanding that is much greater than us in the Western world. I don't think it's a human thing per se, but in the Western world, I think we can get distracted because we have so many things to take our attention. Whereas these guys really program and lay down memory on the body. Every expression that he has pretty much will come out through a movement or through some attention or intention. They do call. If you hear a very high-pitched, distant call, that's my other horse saying, "Where the hell are you?" And I will apologise for her swearing at this point, because she swears like a trooper. So what that gives us, in my experience, is this wonderful mirror to work with in terms of what might be going on within our own physical systems. That is more refined and more elegant and more honest, because there's less layers between than maybe some human interactions may be. Okay? So it's a very, very brief history, because actually I'd like to hear about all of you guys. It's a very, very brief history. I have been training people in horse communication, horse whispering, it's called horse communication systems, for about 20 years. I've also been doing NLP for virtually a similar length of time. So for me, the crossover was just very, very obvious. The presuppositions of NLP, the things that NLP is held by, supported by, lay so easily with working with horses. So the map is not territory, the horse is not actually the behaviour, because actually the horse is a response to the environment, to the context, to the experience. The one with the most flexibility will be the one that leads the communication. It's absolutely something that you're going to witness today. What I would be interested in, for those of you that know about NLP, is for us to be bringing some of these things out. This is a day of exploration for all of us. Okay? So it's not going to be didactic in terms of me just throwing information at you, but I want you involved. And in a minute, I'm going to ask you to come into the school, which will have an interesting response to. So I was teaching. Equine communication to people and NLP at the same time, working with NLP at the same time. What became very apparent to me was that it was less actually about the behaviour of the body language that people were using to communicate with the horse. Though that's important, people could run very similar body language and one would get a positive response and one would get a very different response. So I started to become very interested in what else was happening. And I looked at the intentionality of what was running in the congruence of the human. Those of you that know anything about body language studies, one of the early studies came up with this notion of the 3 C's. So that body language is context driven, all body language is appropriate somewhere, that it's about clusters, it's about how you bring things together. And mostly it's about the congruence that your verbal and your non-verbal communication join together and send a message. And one of the things that horses really notice, I believe, is the lack of congruence, because they are historically programmed to notice. I'm going to shuffle backwards. They're historically programmed to notice lack of congruence, because for them, potentially, that means a life or death experience. He doesn't feel that means that here, though he has done in the past. But what I've worked with him to do is to take away the terror. He was terrified of humans. He was a wild feral horse. I'll tell you a bit about it. And bring that level of attention down to an articulate confidence, interest and attention into what's happening around him and how he responds to that.